In response, the European Union and Canada announced retaliatory tariffs of their own. The EU is targeting $28 billion worth of American goods, including beef, bourbon, motorcycles, and jeans, while Canada is taxing more than $20 billion worth of products, including steel, computers and servers, and cast iron goods. Canada says it's following a dollar-for-dollar approach to new tariffs.
Our sole focus is to stand up for Canadian interests, Canadian jobs, and Canadian workers.
While President Trump imposes new tariffs on key trading partners, he is also pushing for steeper cuts to U.S. government agencies that he says are bloated and need to be slashed.
Department of Education's, maybe more so than any other place, has a lot of people that can be cut.
The Trump administration announced plans to fire more than 1,300 Education Department employees last night, a first step in the president's effort to dismantle the agency.
Donald Trump and Elon Musk do not have the right to shut down the Department of Education. It was created by Congress. Only Congress has that right.
The department's main responsibilities include financial assistance to low-income schools, support for students with disabilities, civil rights oversight, and federal student loans and grants. Erica Brown, CBS News, the White House.
In a memo sent out yesterday about the DOE job cuts, top officials ordered employees to vacate their offices and plan to work from home today in preparation for those layoffs. Those impacted by the cuts will go on administrative leave beginning March 21st. Layoffs are expected to take effect in 90 days. We spoke to U.S. Senator Brian Schatz, he tells us that he believes the cuts are unlawful.
I think this is flatly impermissible under the statute. You know, we're still a country of laws, and the law still matters, and the law does not permit an executive to just decide one day to lay off half of the workers in an agency that they don't like. The executive branch is responsible for executing the laws, and they can't just wave away a law by executive order, by memo. That's a lazy way to try to govern, and I think it'll be overturned in the courts.
All divisions within the DOE are being impacted by the cuts. On Oahu, the 7-year-old girl who was critically injured in an e-bike crash in Ewa Beach last month has died. The incident happened on February 27th. HPD said the little girl collided with a car at the intersection of Kauwili and Laupapa streets. She was not wearing a helmet and was ejected onto the roadway. The juvenile driver of the car was not injured, and officials say speed, drugs, or alcohol do not appear to be factors in the crash. The investigation is ongoing. A new lawsuit claims a state social worker failed to take a warning seriously, a warning that could have saved the life of a 10-year-old girl. Gianna Bradley was found dead last year of starvation and neglect, with duct tape wrapped around her eyes and head. Attorney Randall Rosenberg says her biological father reported alleged abuse to a state social worker when the girl was living in Wahiawa with 4 relatives. He says the social worker downplayed the allegations and dissuaded him from filing a formal complaint. Rosenberg says the new civil lawsuit will help him get access to CWS records.
We want the contact sheet. The contact log. That's the most important document. It'll show whether there was any reports, any complaints, the amount of visitation. And we have seen this several times where we know that there's a complaint being made and no record of it ever appears.
The State's Department of Human Services declined to comment on the new lawsuit over Gianna Bradley, but said in a statement, ensuring the safety and well-being of children is at the heart of everything we do. We rely on the community to play a vital role in keeping children safe. If you see or hear something concerning, or even if you just have a feeling that something is not right, please don't hesitate to report it. The Department of Hawaiian Homelands is asking the state legislature for another $600 million, the same amount it was provided back in 2022. In a joint committee hearing yesterday, lawmakers questioned DHHL leaders about how they used the money they already received. The department said since the 2022 allocation, it's awarded nearly 2,000 leases to waitlisters. However, the total estimated cost to get all 29,000 beneficiaries off the waitlist is $6 billion.
To be honest, I'm getting flashbacks of the rail that originally started off at $3 billion, and now we're here today at $12 billion. So I don't know if the department is just going off of the honor system, but I've been trying to ask these numbers. I asked the chair back in January at an info briefing. I still have not gotten these numbers. You guys are here today, and you still don't have these numbers.
So concerning for me is that we're having right now in this room, that hurts my feelings, that hurt my heart, to see Hawaiians going against Hawaiians, the have Hawaiians and the have not Hawaiians. This was never a bill to have that division. And shouldn't have come to that, shouldn't have been here today.
DHHL Chair Kali Watson did not attend the hearing because he was on pre-planned leave. The committee deferred decision-making to next week, Tuesday. The U.S. Space Force says it could take up to 7 years to clean up a 700-gallon fuel spill on Haleakala. The diesel fuel leaked from a generator at the Maui Space Surveillance Complex back in 2023. Officials say the Department of Health has approved a plan for active bioventing, a process of blowing air into the soil to break down contaminants. The first step is installing an electrical system in April. Last summer, the Maui County Council passed a resolution opposing the building of 7 new telescopes on Haleakala.
Well, happy Wednesday, everybody. It's still relatively breezy across the entire island chain. We have wind advisories up over the eastern portions of the state. Northeasterly winds between 20 to 30 miles per hour, sometimes gusting closer to 50 miles per hour. Again, that's going to continue until 6 p.m. this evening. We're going to see a slight decrease in the winds by the time we get to the end of this weekend. Let's walk you through our first alert windcast as we're going forward. Right now, outside, we're seeing around 20 to 25 mile per hour sustained winds, and it's going to be even breezier as we're going into around 2 to 3 p.m. We could see some wind gusts, like I mentioned, closer to 50 miles per hour in those areas that are included in the wind advisories. Right now, we're seeing wind gusts out there around 30 to 40 miles per hour in some spots. As we're going into the overnight hours, this is around 9 p.m. We're still seeing breezy conditions, and we're going to repeat and see breezy conditions again tomorrow. However, just slightly weaker. I'll give you a full breakdown on this and our first alert futurecast coming up.
Thank you, Drew. More U.S. weapons are on their way to Ukraine after the Trump administration lifted its suspension of military aid to Kyiv. Russia says it will carefully study the 30-day ceasefire proposal the U.S. hammered out with Ukraine yesterday. Holly Williams has the latest.
It's a confusing time for American diplomacy. After yesterday's meeting in Saudi Arabia, the U.S. now appears to be back in Ukraine's corner and calling on Russia to agree to a 30-day ceasefire.
If their response is yes, then we know we've made real progress and there's a real chance of peace. If their response is no, it would be highly unfortunate and it would make their intentions clear.
Thank you for invitation.
Just last month, President Trump called Ukraine's elected president a dictator.
You don't have the cards.
Before publicly berating him at the White House and then suspending U.S. security assistance and intelligence sharing with Ukraine. Both are crucial to this country's military. That pause has now been lifted, and the president's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is expected to head to Russia for talks later this week.
The only way this conflict can end is through negotiation. That's the only way you're going to have peace, is through negotiation.
Through 3 years of war, the U.S. government has committed well over $100 billion to support Ukraine. Separately, many volunteers have come from the U.S. to help as private citizens.
All right, the line is hot.
We've seen them training Ukrainian soldiers.
Unless our bullet is going where we want it to go.
And it's thought hundreds of American volunteers have signed up to serve with Ukraine's army.
Now, the question is whether Vladimir Putin will agree to a temporary ceasefire. His forces currently hold the momentum on the battlefield. But like Ukraine, Russia is thought to have suffered hundreds of thousands of military casualties. Holly Williams, CBS News, Kyiv, Ukraine.
An activist who led pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia University remains in detention in Louisiana. ICE agents took Mahmoud Khalil into custody over the weekend for removal from the U.S., but a federal judge has blocked his deportation for now. Bradley Blackburn has the story.
Demonstrators gathered outside Manhattan federal court calling for the release of pro-Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil.
Everybody should be out in the streets right now. Everybody should be really upset about this right now.
Inside the courthouse, attorneys for the legal U.S. resident faced off with Trump administration officials who want Khalil deported.
Every day that Mahmoud spends in detention in Louisiana is a day too long.
Immigration agents arrested the 30-year-old over the weekend before sending him to an ICE detention center in Louisiana. They claim he led activities aligned to Hamas, but have not provided details on any charges or alleged crimes.
This is a movement, an anti-war movement.
Khalil was a leader during pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia University. The White House says the arrest is just the first of many targeting anti-Semitism on campuses nationwide.
Mahmoud Khalil was an individual who was given the privilege of coming to this country to study at one of our nation's finest universities and colleges. And he took advantage of that opportunity, of that privilege.
On Wednesday, a judge ordered that Khalil's lawyers be given attorney-client privileged calls with their client as they continue to build their case.
We and he fully intend to vindicate not just his First Amendment rights, but those of all Americans, frankly.
They argue their client should be moved closer to his New York home and be reunited with his wife, an American citizen who is expected to give birth next month. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
Ahead on This Is Now, new restrictions are in place on Oahu's North Shore in hopes of protecting the coastline from erosion for generations to come. Plus, as the state's largest income tax cut takes effect, a new online tool helps calculate your new take-home pay. Welcome back. You can now calculate your state taxes online. The Department of Taxation has introduced taxcuthawaii.org. The new resource comes as the state's largest income tax cut takes effect. Under the new tax law, standard deductions will gradually increase through tax year 2031, so tax brackets are also being adjusted. The new web tool will help you estimate what your take-home pay will be under the new law. Well, it's been a year since a landmark lawsuit changed how realtors collect commission when helping you sell your home. Last March, the National Association of Realtors settled for $418 million, and now its brokers don't automatically get their 6% fee when selling a home. Casey Lund shows us if it's had any impact on the market.
That lawsuit was settled in March. It didn't go into effect until August of last year. Right around the same time were some new restrictions that went into effect for shoreline setbacks. And to talk about both those issues, I have Bill Ward. He is a partner and owner with Corcoran Pacific Properties, and Mark Howland, who is chief biologist for Whale Environmental Services. I thank you both for being here today. I'll start with you, Bill, in the lawsuit. I would think, as a realtor yourself, that would have been something that you were a little bit worried about as far as the change in commission structure. But from what you've told me, it's made things better and overall better for buyers and sellers.
It really has, yeah. Now, of course, when you were going through the process, we were all a little, how's this going to play out? In the end, though, we're all pretty happy with it. It's added more transparency to the process on both sides. On the seller side, they're very aware that paying on the buyer's commission is negotiable, and that all commissions, in fact, are negotiable. So it makes it more open and transparent for them. On the buyer side of things, it used to be, you just go out and take a look at a house, and you really didn't have a conversation with the agent about their compensation. Now, we're required to sign a buyer's agreement with them. They'll know what the compensation is, and they may, before signing, as they probably should, check around, do some research, make sure you're working with the agent that you'd like to work with and they have the requisite experience.
There was also some speculation that this could affect home prices, bring them down. Have we seen that?
We really haven't, no. Sales volume's down because interest rates, and that's nationally in Hawaii. But price-wise, we were up 4% on single family and 1% on condo last year. So it has not affected home prices.
Well, and we've got a colleague of yours, somebody you work with in your field, Mark Howland from Environmental Services, and we have some questions for him about not just shoreline erosion and the changes, but let's start with those, the changes in setback.
Right. So these are two issues, as we were just discussing a second ago, that really do impact, and not just oceanfront owners, but those that are within the special management area. There's the 3.2 sea level rise, as well as the new building setback of 60 to 130 feet. Can you please explain those to us, please, Mark?
Sure. The change was they moved it to 60 feet from the previous 40, but then they add the erosion rate. So UH has studied every shoreline around, come up with erosion rates in this area might be 2 feet per year. You have to multiply that by 70. That's 140. You add that to the 60, you'd be at 200, but they capped it at 130. Other places like Malakahana, there's what's called accretion. The shoreline's growing, so you just stay at 60.
Right. So some neighborhoods like here at Aokai, it might go all the way to Cam Highway.
Right.
Also, my understanding is whichever of the two is greater is the one that they're going with. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The reason this is important is that if you're looking to build, add any square footage, build a new house, you may not be able to with this setback. So you really need to get with a contractor, get with an architect, and talk to somebody like Mark to find out what you can do.
Lastly, while we have Mark still here, I want to ask you about our state's approach in general, since I have you, to shoreline setbacks. And you have told me that we're in more of a retreat mode and retreat approach. What can we be doing better?
We're the only state that does a single policy of retreat. They don't bring in any other policies such as mitigation, absorb rather than repel, the wave action, protect the bank, stop the erosion. They just allow it to happen. And it's something that is not done. We've talked to the state legislature about perhaps looking at what's done elsewhere. We've brought in experts from around the world to testify with the state legislature to talk about mitigation rather than retreat.
And I know it sounds like from what you've told me that they're at least open to exploring other options, and so maybe we can be a little bit more optimistic about things moving forward. So I'll connect folks at Hawaii News Now, both with Bill Ward, if you'd like to talk to him, and then with Mark Howland from Whale Environmental Services. I appreciate you gentlemen being with us today. A lot more on this will be coming out in coming months, of course, as we continue to cover both issues here on the North Shore and across the state. We'll send things back into the studio for now.
Hey, thanks, Casey. Stick around. Coming up after the break, we've got your first alert forecast. We've got strong winds and drier air over the next couple of days. We'll take you hour by hour. Coming up.
First Alert Weather with Drew Davis.
Well, happy Wednesday, everybody. We've got a really nice couple of days ahead of us. We've got drier air in the forecast, but we're also tracking those stronger winds. Again, we do have a wind advisory up over the eastern portions of the state. Just taking a quick look at our hour-by-hour forecast. Right now, easterly winds around 18 miles per hour. Temperatures outside in town. This is recorded at the airport around 83 degrees, and expanding this out throughout the rest of this evening. You'll notice we're going to be in the green. Seeing fair weather, just a little bit breezy out there. 82 around 2 p.m. because we've got those breezy trades around east-northeasterlies 20 miles per hour. Of course, wind advisories up over the eastern portions of the state until 6 p.m. on Wednesday. Those don't include Molokai, Oahu, or Kauai right now, but they could be extended further in time. But we're expecting those winds to get a little bit weaker. Small craft advisories also up until 6 p.m. on Wednesday across the entire island chain. Winds outside right now, overall northeasterly flow. Kahului around 24 miles per hour. Kaunakakai sustained winds around 20 miles per hour. And over the last 24 hours, you can take a quick look at our maximum wind gusts that we've had in town. 37 miles per hour. Kahului nearly 40 miles per hour. So relatively breezy and gusty out there. Winds will get a little bit weaker throughout the rest of this week, but still gusty nonetheless. Taking a look at our First Alert Futurecast as we're going forward. Overall drier air is expected throughout Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Stable air is going to be around the entirety of the state. A couple of showers possible over near Hilo and the windward portions of Maui, but overall not as much rainfall expected on the back half of this week as we had on the first half. On our surf and shoreline forecast, north-facing shores around 10 to 14 feet, west-facing shores around 7 to 10. This forecast is for this afternoon. East-facing shores a little bit choppy out there because of these breezy trades, and of course surf is small in town. And just giving you a quick look at our First Alert radar and satellite outside, we've got a couple of sprinkles out there, but it's relatively dry. Some slight showers moving in towards the eastern portions of Hawaii Island. We are seeing wind returns on our First Alert radar and satellite. You can see out there because of how windy it is, the salt and sea spray is getting picked up by the winds, lofted into the air, and then getting picked up by the radar as well. A few sprinkles on the northern portions of the Ko'olau, and also just moving in towards the windward portions of Oahu. And then also on Kauai, seeing some wind returns out there as well. Here's a quick look at your First Alert 7-day forecast. Really nice weather out there over the next couple of days. Wednesday, again, highlighted in red because we have those wind advisories up, and a couple of showers possible on Monday and Tuesday.
Thank you, Drew. Still to come, Vanna White shocks fans by revealing how many days a year she actually works on Wheel of Fortune. We'll tell you in 2 minutes. good news, a big gift with a big impact for students at Mid-Pacific Institute. The school received a $250,000 donation for its Pupukahi hula program, which provides hula training for students in grades 9 through 12. The donation will help pay for travel, performances, and other opportunities for students to learn more about the Hawaiian culture.
And Britain's Chester Zoo is celebrating the birth of a rare species of lemur known as dancing lemurs. The baby was born to parents Beatrice and Elliot, weighing only about 100 grams. According to the zoo, this particular species is known for standing perfectly upright and using their powerful legs to spring side to side, hence the name dancing lemurs. Due to deforestation in their native country of Madagascar, the dancing lemurs are critically endangered. They definitely have the moves, though.
They're cute.
And Vanna White has a lot of time on her hands.
Yeah, that's because she has a pretty sweet PTO policy at Wheel of Fortune. Get this. During an appearance on the Elvis Duran and the Morning Show, the legendary letter turner says she works roughly 34 days a year. That's because the game show typically shoots 6 episodes a day. She joked it's tough to make a half-dozen wardrobe changes each time she's on the set. White has co-hosted the widely syndicated program since 1982. And if you're doing the math, that is 331 days off.
That is insane.
A year.
That is insane. Maybe I'll ask for that PTO.
Good luck. For your contract, your next contract?
My next contract.
Yeah, good luck with that.
That's
Let me know how that goes.
It's not going to happen.
All right, thanks for watching. This is Now, more news first at 4, right here on KHNL. Aloha.